just in pain or what with all this work? And he goes, pain? What pain? It's just...
All right. Call the March 8th, 2016 Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting to order. And will you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, Kelly.
Kimball,
Here.
Keen,
Here.
Latham,
Here.
Carey,
Here.
Hampy. Here. Let the record show that all commissioners are present with the exception of Ryan Davis, who is excused.
Okay. John, do we have any amendments to the agenda today?
No, there isn't.
Okay. All right. Ceremonies, appointments, announcements, and presentations. Looks like we have election of chair and vice chair. Entertain a motion.
I would like to nominate Ryan Davis for chair.
Okay.
I would like to nominate Ray Kimball for chair also.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Got a couple of nominations.
Who has expressed willingness to do it, desire to do it.
Ryan said he was fine. I'm fine.
Is Ryan fine with it?
Ryan's fine
Okay,
with it. Yeah.
That's great.
I'll be fine vice chair if you
That's
so
fine
desire
with me.
that. Okay.
So I'll second. Is that what we need to do?
So we need a motion. Oh, so you amend your,
I would amend that, and I'll go ahead and I'll make the motion
Okay.
for Ryan Davis as chair for 2016.
okay. So we have a motion. We have a second for Ryan Davis as chair of Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Kelly, can I get a roll call, please?
Kimball,
Yes?
Hampy,
Yes.
Keen,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Latham.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Vice chair. I get a motion on that.
Might as well, right? Make,
Yeah. I move that you want to nominate Ray Campbell as vice chair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Kelly, roll call, please.
Hampy,
Yes.
Keen,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Latham.
yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Okay, so we do have a public hearing on the agenda tonight. So if you are wishing to speak with regards to that public hearing, we have some sign-up sheets in the back of the room. Please sign up and bring those to Kelly so you can have your comments or so you can be heard. That said, do we have any declarations of conflict? Any conflicts of interest today?
No.
Seeing none, we're moving on. We have the consent calendar. Need a motion?
I move we accept the consent calendar as printed.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Kimball,
Yes?
Hampy,
Yes.
Keen,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Latham.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. This brings us to the citizens' issues section of the agenda. This section is reserved for citizens wishing to address the commission on issues that are not on the agenda. Comments on these issues or comments on issues that are planned for future meeting agendas should be held for that meeting. Anybody here that would like to talk to us about anything in particular? Not on the agenda? Seeing none? We'll move on. There is no unfinished business. So, public hearings. As I said earlier, we're getting ready to start the public hearing portion of the agenda. If you would like to speak or comment on the public hearing, please make sure that you filled out a form in the comment sheet in the back and take it up to Kelly up here in the front so that you can be heard. We do ask that when you come up here to the podium that you state your name and address for the record. So I'll open the public hearing for the Veneer Zone Change ZC 15-04, John Manley presenting.
Good evening, Commissioners. John Manley, Associate Planner here with the City of Post Falls. Introducing the Veneer zone change request, file number ZC15-04. The owner of the land is Idaho Veneer Company, and the applicant's representative is Rand Wickman. The requested action is for the Planning and Zoning Commission to review a proposed zone change on a portion of the request from heavy industrial zoning to community commercial services. That's the CCS zoning district. The CCS zoning district permits most commercial uses that you would see within the city of Post Falls that are along Southeast Way and Highway 41. The other portion that's being requested is from a heavy industrial zoning to high-density multifamily R3 zoning found within Exhibit A3 of your staff report. So tonight, the Planning and Zoning Commission will be asked to review this proposed zone change and make a recommendation to City Council for approval. The proposed zone change area is, as you see here on the map, the site. It's kind of split in half. You see this is 4th Avenue. The CCS request is to the north, and I've modified the request here. It's where you can see in red, that's what, if it was approved, what the color demarcation would change to, similar to what you see north of I-90. And then south, to the south would be R3, or about 18.4 acres R3 and 11.8 acres of CCS. The general location is, as you see here, there's Idaho Street, 4th Avenue, you have I-90, and the Southeast Way overpass. So it's just southwest of that interchange of Southeast Way and 4th Avenue and I-90. Looking at the surrounding zoning, the surrounding environment, you can kind of see just the aerial footprint of the type of built environment of commercial. You have a grocery store just to the east, as well as other various commercial buildings just to the east. To the south, we have senior care facilities, some storage units, and some other miscellaneous commercial type uses. And then to the southwest and west, we have kind of older parts of town that's probably either underdeveloped or in a transitioning state. So the two parcels together, they would approximate about 30.2 acres of zone change. And both the water provider and the sewer provided for this area would be with the city of Post Falls. So this would conclude staff's introduction to the project at this time. Do you have any questions for me at this point?
No.
Okay.
All right, thanks. You wanted that, sorry. Yeah, okay. That one. Okay. Thanks, John.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Rand Wickman. My address is 2992 East Gotham Bay Road, Harrison, Idaho. Thanks very much to staff, and it's a pleasure to be back here 2 months in a row in front of you. For those of you who may have looked carefully at the application, I have one correction to make. You might notice that the acreage on the application form that I turned in was wrong. It was 31 point something, and I can't make 11.8 and 18.4 add up to that, even with new math. And so I apologize for that. The correct acreage is, as John indicated, 30.2 acres. So we'll start with my mistakes. So I think that's the only one that jumped out at me. It is two parcels, as you can see there. The north parcel has the fire district buildings, facilities there in the northwest corner. We believe because of the highway frontage there along the interstate that it makes sense to have that as community commercial, with the other piece on the other side as R3. You'll recall last month you recommended to council that they amend the comp plan designation for the north parcel. The comp plan designation prior to that is residential for the whole thing, which was a little bit unusual, I thought, especially in the context of that northern parcel. But we appear to be headed in the right direction there. I don't think there's a whole lot to argue about tonight, or doesn't seem to be. The requested zoning is compatible with the comprehensive plan, both the map and the goals and policies. It's our position that the requested zoning is appropriate for the site, given the surrounding zoning and the uses, considering the centralized location and the surrounding transportation network. We also think the requested zoning is appropriate for the site, given that the city services are available to it to serve the uses that can be reasonably anticipated to occur there. And so we see it as moving Post Falls in the direction that it appears your planning documents want to go in this area. We think it's the first step towards some changes in this neighborhood. You know, it's a neighborhood that hasn't seen much in the way of progress compared to the rest of the city. And so we think it's an exciting step in that direction. You know, we concur with staff's analysis and review on it. And unless you have questions of me, I don't know that I need to really belabor the point. And so happy to answer any questions you have. Otherwise, I'll go sit down.
Do you have any questions?
Don't.
Brandon, I do have one question for you. Approximately how far from the western edge of the R3 is it to the buildings? The active buildings of the heavy industrial?
Okay, let me see if I can go back to the aerial was the other direction here. So I wonder if I can do it with a mouse here. The line that will divide the zoning is right here at about the difference between that and that distance, as memory serves, it's pretty significant. I believe it's on the order of 500 or 600 feet. That's a little bit of a guess there, Ray, but it's not a couple hundred feet. It's 300-400 anyway. The primary mill buildings, you know, you get here. The bigger mill building is here, obviously. These are the smaller buildings that I'm not, you know, I've never actually toured the mill facility, so I don't know what they do where there, but the zone change boundary will be right about here.
Okay. Thank you. That helps. Okay. John?
So in regards to the staff report and the planning division, in review of the proposal, we found that it was consistent with the goals and policies found within the comprehensive plan. A detailed analysis of that was found within the staff report. And we did denote that it may be consistent with the future land use map that currently, as Rand had mentioned, and we reviewed last month, was that section that you see is being proposed for CCS is currently on the future land use map as residential. That was recommended to go before City Council, and that'll be on the 15th of this month for them to review, for that to go to a commercial, which would then at that time be consistent. So staff would recommend that if you wanted to approve this request, to condition it upon the approval of an amendment to the future land use map. That way we would then maintain being consistent with the requested zone change. Also, with I-90 being directly to the north and with the other uses, that commercial would be the most compatible zone that we have available for that area. So that would be an appropriate zoning designation. Also, the R3 being at that location, so close to I-90 and around the other R3 just to the south, Where you see this white, that's actually industrial. It's just how it shows up on the map is of no color. The gray you see, that's the heavy industrial zoning designation. So in general, both those land use designations are compatible with each other and with what is adjoining it, as well as the roads adjacent to it as well.
John, really quick,
Yeah.
the industrial to the south there, is that current land use? What's the current land use on it?
The current land use, you have storage units there. You also have an office building at that location. There's a daycare, and I believe, and there's the beverage barn is at that location. So
Okay,
they're all commercial or light industrial in nature.
okay.
Also, with the additional rooftops that would potentially be in the R3 zoning designation, R3 would permit up to 21 units per acre, and that's if it was a townhome type product. There's, you can do single-family homes, duplexes, apartments, and then townhomes all within that one zoning designation. So all those uses and would assist providing additional individuals within a walking distance. With two, when we go back to, you have a grocery store just right here, you got a few restaurants, you got some strip malls, and some other commercial services, and generally speaking, having apartments and other higher densities next to those commercial uses, they benefit from each other. Similarly, the apartments benefit from having those services nearby as well, so it's kind of a reciprocating type environment. There's 4 criteria within our zone change requests that we look at and whether we would approve or deny a request. The first one is that zoning is assigned following considerations of such items as street classifications, traffic patterns, existing development, future land uses, community plans, and geographic or natural features. I believe most of what we discussed would show that they would meet this criteria in what they're requesting. The other one is that commercial and high-density residential zoning is typically assigned along streets with higher road classifications, being next to Celtice Way, I-90, and along 4th Avenue and Idaho Street, that those road classifications would also then be consistent with this criteria. Limited or neighborhood commercial and lower density residential is typically assigned for properties as they proceed further away from the higher intensity urban activity areas. I would consider this area not being further away and being rather centrally located within the city of Post Falls. Therefore, more of your commercial and higher density type zoning districts would be more appropriate at this location. So that would also be consistent with what they're proposing. The other one is that industrial zoning is typically assigned for properties with sufficient access to major transportation routes and may be situated away from residential zoning. If approved, there would be some pre-existing residential zones that would be adjacent to potential residential uses. As I stated though, the high density type R3 zoning district could serve as a buffer between that, and as Ray had asked, a lot of those uses just to the south are storage units or commercial type uses, so there's not a conflict. Also, I would like to add that we're currently looking to update our comprehensive plan and our zoning ordinance, so this also may address this particular area as we look and will seek to bring more compatibility with what we have as designations and within our current built environment. The engineering division commented in regards to transportation and that the proposal would not have a significant impact on the city's transportation system, but would like to add that a traffic impact analysis may be required prior to site development. So depending on the intensity of what's being proposed would implicate whether or not that would be required. For the water reclamation facility, is that the proposal would not cause any issues with that facility, and that the water reclamation mains would need to be extended to the site, and that would be done through site development. And that there's capability and capacity to serve the project. In regards to the water, that there's no issues to serve with the city's domestic water facilities. There is capability and capacity to serve the project. And similar to the water reclamation, that mains would need to be extended to the site through development at this location. We didn't receive any other comments from city departments. Kootenai County Fire did want to comment on this, is that they do support the zone change. They see that the CCS is conducive and compatible with their operations as they're adjacent to that. But they did want to just bring to light that, and to be aware that with the R3 zone property and with residences living in close proximity, that there's a potential of complaints driven by being that close to the fire station. But it's not uncommon in urban areas for apartments to be located next to these facilities either. The last comment was more staff's comment than Kootenai County Fire's comment. So at this time, that would conclude the staff report. Do you have any other questions for me?
Any other questions? Nope. Okay, thanks, John.
All right, thanks.
All right, it's time for testimony. Kelly, do we have any in favor?
We do not.
Do we have any signed up as neutral?
We do not.
And do we have any opposed?
Thank you.
We have Bob Flowers. He is in opposition and wishes to speak. Mr. Flowers. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Bob Flowers, 3914 East Maplewood Avenue, Post Falls. I'm kind of divided on this. The CCI seems to be exactly where it should be. But putting high-density housing in an area that, one, you don't know what the ground's like for sure, because the mill's been there for a lot of years, so who knows what could be buried in there. Let's say, and the traffic. I'm not sure how many units they are actually looking at for this R3 zoning area, but considering last month you folks approved over 200 apartment to be built in an area smaller than what we're talking here, that means we got a potential of having at least 200 apartment building or apartments in that area. All that traffic dumped into there, and it doesn't fit. I mean, are we trying to make Post Falls look like East Celtice Way with nothing but a row after row after row of apartments? You keep approving these things without really taking a look at the numbers. I know that I spoke last month, and all I really got from you folks was, well, the rules say we can, so we're going to. Well, I tell you what, just because it's legal one way doesn't mean it's right the other way. I really ask you to take a look and see if you really want the potential of 200 or 300 apartments shoved right there in the middle of Post Falls. And a traffic study, I'd love to see that, because before anybody can do anything there, I don't think them roads there can handle that many folks. So I'm just asking you to look at it. The commercial side of it, that looks great. That's exactly where it should be, because the traffic flow is there. But high-density housing does not belong in that other section. Thank you.
That's it for public testimony. Do we have any rebuttal from the applicant? Your name again, please.
Yep, Rand Wickman for the record. I appreciate Mr. Flowers' concerns there and appreciate his endorsement of the commercial side of things. With regard to the property, I'll just try and address the issues as he raised them. The property has had I think they call it a level 1 environmental review or something like that. So the property has been evaluated for any sort of contamination or bad things that happen to come with industrial development, and was given a clean bill of health there. Of course, that probably has to be renewed when a future owner comes in to develop it. I understand that those environmental reviews have a particular shelf life. They're only good for a certain period of time, and that was done a couple years ago. Nothing has occurred on the property since then, but the property that we are rezoning on both sides has been given a clean bill of health. With regard to traffic, it's hard for us to do. It would be hard to do a traffic impact study if you don't have a design in mind. Frankly, we don't. You know, my guys, they cut up wood. That's what they know how to do, and they are not developers and have no aspirations for being developers. What they're trying to do is position this property to sell it. Frankly, few people want to buy industrial zone or heavy industrial zoned property. It's a significant turnoff in the sales side of things, and so they want to get it rezoned, market it appropriately to people that are in this business and that can pick up the ball and run with it and develop the property. And so it is hard for us to, it would be hard for us to do a meaningful traffic impact analysis, not knowing where approaches go or even what the ultimate density will be. Having said that, this property is pretty well positioned from a transportation standpoint in that let me just roll back here. Where was I? Am I going to get there? Yeah, that's the one I'm after. And so we have 4th on the, that runs between there, and it dumps out here to Celtice. You've got Idaho Street running north-south. 4th also allows you to go out to the west. The traffic can leave the area in different directions, and it has a pretty close shot to the major arteries of the city here, and so you don't get much closer to getting onto the highway and into the higher classified streets than what this site has got. It has good access, as good as anywhere in the city, I would argue. And so if there is any place in the city that could handle the traffic generated from an R3 kind of development, this site is probably it, or as good as any. The question of do you want this in the middle of the city? I think I would argue that this is probably the best place for it. I think this is probably better suited for R3 development in your city center, perhaps more so than some of those that you heard, not saying that they are inappropriately located, but those that were approved last month, for example, are not anywhere near your city center, and I think this is closer to commercial services. It's got a good transportation network. It's compatible with the surrounding, and so I think this is a good site for R3, as good as anywhere in the city. And so, I respectfully disagree with Mr. Flowers on that, but that's why you guys get the big bucks, of course, and you get to help determine what direction the city should take. And we think it's the right direction for the city to go, and we'd request your recommendation for approval on it. And that's all I've got unless you have more questions of me.
Do you have any more questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions for the staff before we close the public hearing?
John, the one question that I have, and to lend light to Mr. Flowers' disagreement with this project, we are only just changing the zoning. We haven't done anything for site development, approval of buildings, apartments, or anything else. We're just changing the zoning, is that correct?
Yeah, we're not permitting any development at this time. It is a zoning designation change. That being said, there is a difference in vested rights with each designation.
And rather than having us deny a lot of things, and the reason why you bring all of the points forward on the zoning map and everything else is because there's only certain reasons we can deny a zoning change. Is that not also correct?
That would be correct. That's why you have a criteria set for a zone change. If for some reason there was a contradiction to the criteria set that was mentioned as part of the staff report, then that would be a baseline for a denial.
Right. And so if there is no conflict, we really can't deny it. We can add some conditions, but we can't deny it.
I may let Warren, if you want to chime in.
Yeah, that's more or less correct. I mean, you start with the analysis that people typically have the right to do with their property what they want to do, so long as what they want to do is consistent with the law. So if they've asked for a zone change, you're judging that application against the adopted criteria. Anything else that's not in those criteria really don't matter. The only thing that you can look at is those criteria. If there's no evidence that shows that one of those criteria is not met, then you pretty much have the obligation to approve the zone change. That's obviously what you guys, again, get paid the big bucks for, is making those decisions whether or not the evidence that you've received at the hearing is supportive of those approval criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Have any more questions for staff?
No.
Okay. Close the public hearing. And a little discussion. Mark, what do you
I
think?
get to start. I don't have any comments. I think that's it's well thought out. The CCS and the R3. They're both leading onto a Celtice Way that's an arterial right through the city, and it's a good infill designation in my mind.
Okay. Nancy?
I understand where Mr. Flowers is coming from, and just an overview, when you look at it, there could be a lot of units on 18-plus acres. So I understand that concern. However, I do think the location, if it were to max out, it's 21 per acre, is probably a better place for it than a lot. So I'm a little bit on the fence. The commercial, I agree with completely, but that density concerns me a little bit.
Okay. Vicki Jo?
I'm kind of the same. I agree with the commercial. The R3, I would worry a little bit, but nothing's in the building stages. I mean, they'd have to come back to us with plans and everything and at that time we could discuss how, density in the property, couldn't we? When they come back with.
No, at time of site, once they get the R3 designation,
Yes.
if they come in with a project, they have vested rights with that designation. So they could come in and it would be an administrative review for site development for a project. It wouldn't come back before the Planning and Zoning Commission. We would at a staff level review that and approve it.
Would they have to come back to us with plans when they were actually going to start building or anything? So this is just, so it would just be staff review from here?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Unless they went beyond what was permitted outside that, then it would encumber maybe numerous alternatives, but as long as they stay within their rights of the R3 designation, it would stay at a staff level.
Okay, thank you.
Warren?
I guess with that caveat, I'm a little bit more concerned because at 21 units for 18 acres, you're talking almost 400 different apartments on that area, and we don't have any kind of traffic analysis to go by, I think that would be supportive of it, but yet it does lead to having a little bit more concern about that not coming before the Planning and Zoning Commission, being merely a staff. If they meet the criteria, then the staff approves it, and their building plans are up, and the apartments are then up. And so that's a little concerning.
Okay. My thoughts on it, at least with regard to traffic, is that it's been my experience in the land development world that commercial development has a much higher traffic impact potential on a site like this, especially an 18-acre site in the center. This could, if it were a CCS zone instead of R3, that could attract a big box store like a Home Depot or something like that would have a much higher traffic impact than apartments. And so, and that's why we have traffic impact fees that get paid, and we have staff level recommendations for a traffic impact analysis. And that's where I feel very comfortable with either CCS on this or R3. And honestly, I think R3 fits really well for that little area. It's going to hopefully help. Hopefully, if it develops out as R3, it'll help some of those struggling businesses in that vicinity get some customers within close walking distance. It's right next to the railroad tracks, which eventually I think will end up being a rails to trails. So I think it's a good fit, and I think both the CCS along the freeway as well as the R3 are good, and I'm happy to see that they've actually left a sizable gap between the R3 and the actual operational part of the mill to keep the annoyance factor down. So I would support this request. And with that, I will look for a motion.
We didn't get one printed out this time. So I'm looking for the numbers. I would move that case file CZ 15-04 Veneer zone change be approved.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Kelly, can I get a roll call, please?
Kimball,
Yes?
Hampi,
Yes.
Keen,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes,
Latham.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Motion carries. And on to the next item. Does not look like we have any new business. John, do we have any staff comments?
No additional comments, thanks.
Commission comments, anything for the good of the order?
Oh, congratulations on your vice chair.
Yay. And looks like we need a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Adjourned. Thank you. See you next month.